So let's pretend we're not in church, okay? Let's pretend we're maybe in a classroom in a college or high school. So when we get to church, somehow we get really conservative. Because I want to ask you a question and I want an answer. So if I were to ask you, what is the single biggest goal that people have in life? What would it be? To be happy. You win the Cupid doll hand. Susan wins the Cupid doll. Be happy. You know, Google, when you type something in and it predicts what you are about to ask it, sometimes it's really annoying. It's not even close. But if you Google the words how to be ... up until recent weeks, the number one answer that Google would come up with was happy. The reason I say recent weeks is because I tried it just the other day, and what came up was how to be single. What a statement on our culture this day, I guess. I was very confused until I discovered that it's a new movie that's out, How to Be Single. So what do you think number 2 is?
Healthy.
No. Rich is number 2. What do you think number 3 is? How to be pretty. How to be pretty. How to be pretty. You know, much of our life is spent in the pursuit of happiness. We all want to be happy, of course. And we spend an extraordinary amount of time and energy and money and focus on trying to grasp and capture that elusive thing that we call happiness. Well, I'm really, really sorry to have to disappoint you this morning, because 2 weeks ago in Maclean's magazine, the cover says, "Why You're Never Going to Be Happy." Why You're Never Going to Be Happy. And it was written by a guy by the name of Emile Paterson. And he also wrote a book called The Book of Awesome. Anybody familiar with that one? Cute little book, The Book of Awesome. And by all standards, Neil himself should be extraordinarily happy. Because, as he writes, he said he has much to be happy about. He owns a home in Toronto, has a loving wife, a young son, and now a second baby on the way. Despite all of these accomplishments and even the wisdom he imparts in his books, finding happiness has turned out to be as much a maze as a marathon for him. He says, "I don't feel like I've achieved any next level of enlightenment or nirvana." Can anybody relate to that? You see, happiness is an elusive commodity. And part of the reason, I think, is because we have, as a human species, we have changed the basic instinct of survival into one of thriving. As human beings, for centuries, we needed to survive. We needed clothes on our back. We needed to stay warm. We needed a roof over our heads. We needed food in our stomachs. We needed safety. And so much of human history is about surviving. And now, for many of us, for most of us, not all, this whole concept of survival is something of the past. We don't even consider it. Because we have it all already. We have everything we need. Surviving isn't an issue. Thriving is the issue. And we are being inundated with messages about what that means for us to thrive. Neil goes on to say in this article that we are living a good life, but wondering, or more likely worrying, about how it could and should be better, while trying valiantly to make it so. Often there are at least adequately functioning by almost every external measurement, employment and maintaining relationships, and engaged with the world around them, but inside they are still unnervingly dissatisfied. The problem, he says, is that the goals they are pursuing don't yield happiness. The psychologist in Toronto, a researcher, says, you score a goal in life, and rather than enjoy the goal, you move the goalposts. You know, seeking happiness has become, in our Western civilization, a billion-dollar industry. If you go on to Amazon.com and you search the word happiness, it has 49,000 titles that will assist you in finding your nirvana happiness. Walked into chapters, there was a sign that said, "The science of happiness, crack the code of your happiest self." It's become a science. So, this begs the question, why is happiness seemingly so elusive for us? And what is it actually that we do want? In other words, put another way, Neil says, there is a fundamental disconnect between the way people live and what they want, between the way the brain works and what the heart longs for. Our brain tells us one thing and our heart tells us something completely different. So, what is it we want? What is it we need? What are we searching for? Anybody got the answer? How about joy? How about joy? Here's your second question. What's the difference between happiness and joy? Has anybody ever thought of that before? What is the difference between happiness and joy? I suggest what we truly are searching for is joy. And what joy is? Joy is the fiber of your spirit, the fiber of your soul, the essence of your being. Joy is the stuff of your essence. There's a writer by the name of Danielle Laporte, and what she says is that, this is how she describes it. She says, happiness is like bubbles. They're like delightful and they're fleeting. Joy is the oxygen. See, joy is the foundation of your true being. There's a famous psychologist by the name of Abraham Maslow. And he came up with this expression called self-actualization. To be self-actualized. And he went through the course of history and named people who were self-actualized. And he named people like Mahatma Gandhi as one. And he named Martin Luther King as one. And he named Jesus Christ as the pinnacle of self-actualization. What that means is, you know who you are, you know the gifts you've been given, you experience the joy of satisfaction of living within your own skin, and you're single-minded about your purpose and your drive and your meaning of your life. And that as we grow and evolve with life, we get more and more self-actualized, we hope. But the challenge for us living in this day and age is that we are living in the extrinsic, external world so much that we have so little time to look within about the intrinsic values that make us tick. What Danielle has said, she says, it's possible to grieve with your whole heart and still sense joy. You can feel rage and be aware of joy waiting patiently for you. You can get dumped on, fired, or pulled through the eye of the needle and still feel held by the container of joy, the truth of your existence. See, joy is the love that lasts no matter what. It is this essence of spiritual well-being and contentedness. The Bible speaks about happiness 30 times in the entire Bible. The Bible speaks about joy and rejoicing over 300 times. And today we hear this resurrection story about the ultimate moment of joy. The resurrection is about turning the world as we know it on its head, reordering priorities, reordering our own lives. We get blindsided by something that we didn't even see coming, and we are changed and transformed forever. So I want you to hear the story about some ordinary people. Mary Magdalene, who had a pretty rough life. A couple of friends. John, we presume, and Peter. Their world had just been overturned because the one that had made all these promises to them about a new beginning and new birth and new hope was suddenly snatched from their grasp, put on a cross to die one horrific kind of death. So where's the joy in that? So the grief and the pain they must have been feeling must have been excruciating because their future was no longer. And so Mary, first thing in the morning, gets up to go to the grave. And those of us that have grieved deeply for someone we have lost can feel that vacuous emptiness within, that pain that just never seems to go away. And she's on the way to this place to anoint his body. And she gets there, and the grave has been overturned. It's like going to your family plot and it has been desecrated. How would she have felt? Fear, anxiety, shock. She would have been just freaked right out. She turns on her heel and she whips home to her friends, and they come running. They look, stand at the grave. The first, John, stands at the foot of the grave, and he doesn't go in. And Peter, as Peter did, because he was a man of machismo, dashed into this grave only to find these linen cloths. And he's going, what the heck? What is this? And then the second, John, he comes in and it says, and he believed. What he believed, we do not know. But he believed. He was transformed. Something changed in his life. They went home. And Mary stood weeping, grieving, because she felt that the grave had been robbed, or somebody had come and done something terrible to the man she loved. And she hears this voice behind her in the garden. She doesn't know which way is up. She assumes he's the gardener. And asks the question, why are you weeping? She's probably thinking to herself, you idiot. Why do you think I'm weeping? Why am I here? And then Jesus says her name. Mary. As God says each of our names. Mary. She sees him. Her joy is restored. Her hope is renewed. And from that moment on, it no longer matters to her what happens in the world. What she has been given is a gift of joy, self-awareness, that there is a God who is compassionate and loving and will complete her, so that no matter what Good Friday event comes before her, she's going to be okay. She lives in the joy of this resurrected moment where she is transformed, her world is turned upside down, and it is reoriented in the person of Jesus. She goes on to live her life because getting to Sunday through Good Friday is difficult for her and for all of us. And we will continue in our lifetime to go through our Good Fridays. But we do so in the assurance that there is a Sunday. And in that Sunday, we continue to claim and embrace the gift of joy and the gift of hope and the gift of new life and the gift of new beginning. This morning, it was quite extraordinary. I had a note from a friend who said that the Pope this morning knelt down and washed the feet of Muslim refugees and Christian refugees on Easter Sunday morning. Talk about turning the world on its head. A moment of incredible joy and love and compassion. It is our symbol. It is our hope. It is our joy that we take into the world so that all may embrace a life that is a gift of God. I want to show you a short 3-minute video of what I think is the ultimate sense of joy and hope and compassion and humanity. And it comes from a 6-year-old girl.